Coming up on Windows Weekly, I, Micah Sargent, am in for Leo Laporte. But don't worry, we've got a great show ahead for you. Paul and Mary Jo are talking about Windows 8.1, heading into that retirement stage. Yes, end of support date is right around the corner for Windows 8.1. But we have a not-so-brief conversation about what from Windows 8.1 is sticking around. And I believe Paul calls it kind of a cancer. Then we talk about Windows 11. There's a few new things to learn there, but mostly it's all about a dev channel build before we get into Microsoft Edge, including some gaming updates that the browser is offering. Could that mean a future with Edge OS? We talk about that. A little brief Xbox segment. We take some questions from the audience and round things out with the back of the book. And an excellent beer for the 4th of July. Stay tuned. We've got a great show planned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly, episode 783, recorded Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. We have nothing to share at this time. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Tanium. Tanium unites operations and security teams with a single platform that identifies where all your IT data is, patches every device you own in seconds, and implements critical security controls all from a single pane of glass. Are you ready to protect your organization from cyber threats? Learn more at tanium.com/twit. And by HackerRank. It's time to reboot your technical interviews with HackerRank's easy-to-use tools. With a pre-made question library, code playback, and built-in whiteboard, you'll be conducting better technical interviews and instantly identifying the right talent. Go to hackerrank.com/ww to start a better tech interview for free today. And by ITPro TV. Give your team an engaging IT development platform to level up their skills. Volume discounts start at 5 seats. Go to itpro.tv/windows. Make sure to mention WW30 to your designated ITPro TV account executive to get 30% off or more on a business plan. It's time for Windows Weekly. I, Micah Sargent, am in today for Leo Laporte, but don't worry, he'll be back soon. Until then, we've got a regular show planned for you. This, of course, is the show where everybody wears red and plays tug of war. I
didn't get the memo, no.
I didn't either, don't worry. No, we don't always play tug of war, but of course, we are joined by the foremost Windows watchers in the world. It is Mary Jo Foley of allaboutmicrosoft.com, the ZDNet blog. Hello, Mary Jo.
Hello, Micah.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm not playing tug of war. I'm also not wearing red, so I feel a little unthemed.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, let's see if Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com is wearing red or playing tug of war. No, not.
There's a little bit of red over there.
Either. Yeah, you got some red in the frame. That's all that matters. How are you today, Paul?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I am doing all right. It's kind of hot here, but we're hanging in there. It's actually cooler back in my hometown of Missouri, of St. Joseph, Missouri, which is a little weird to have it be warmer here than there in summer. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the weather, except whenever it comes up in Windows 11 in the start bar, it doesn't. But before we get to that, we got to talk about some end-of-life things. What's going on with Windows 8.1?
Let's start with death.
Let's start with death before we go to life.
Yeah, so this isn't horrible, and it probably doesn't affect that many people who listen to this show. But if you're running Windows 8.1, end of life of that operating system is coming up in January 2023. Microsoft just made a big deal out of it because it's 6 months away, and they want people to know that they're going to start sending reminders through the operating system saying, remind me, or you can say, learn more, remind me later, or remind me after the end of support date. So like those kind of nag things that they do sometimes to get people off an older version will be happening. And here's the thing to know. If you are running 8.1 and you are thinking, oh, you know what they're going to do? Extended support extended security updates like they did. They're not. They're not going to do that. So you either need to get off Windows 8.1 or you're going to be running a very insecure operating system after next January. I don't know how many people are on 8.1, but I know there are some because I hear from them occasionally.
Yeah, there are some. Right? It's not a very big number.
Some. No. But yeah, that's like all you really need to know about the actual end of support. It's not the end of, it is the end of mainstream support. Extended support. So that means no more security updates, no more tech support, nothing. Like after that date in January, you're done. That's the end.
So I think Windows 8.1 or Windows 8X, whatever we want to call this thing, is a little bit like Internet Explorer. It's support is ending, but realistically speaking, most people have moved on a long time ago. Right. I actually do know a couple people still running Windows 8.1.
Me too.
Myself.
I hear from people.
I'm trying to bring up the share
every
here.
Once in a while.
The share of Windows 8.1 was 3% last month of, I think, of all versions. I don't know if that's just Windows. So, 1.4 billion, I think, was the latest figure for Windows overall, whatever 3% is of that. So it's, small. However, I will say that we can celebrate ourselves for having moved on from Windows 8.1, but the truth is this thing is sticking with us like cancer, and we are never getting rid of it. And if you use Windows 10, I mean that, and I mean that as awful as that sounds, that is absolutely a fact. If you're running Windows 10 or you're running Windows 11, you have the guts of Windows 8.1 in there, and by that I mean the app model and the store that Microsoft debuted with Windows 8, which used to be called Metro and Windows RT or WinRT. It's gone through all kinds of names: UWP, Project Reunion for one little bit, and then the Windows App SDK, whatever it is, that stuff still there, and it's never going away. And the biggest mistake that Microsoft ever made in the history of Windows was Windows 8 and that app model in the store. A really immature new mobile platform, not based on .NET, but based on new stuff. And we're stuck with it forever. It's never going away. Microsoft will never create another major app platform for Windows ever. This is it. We're stuck with it. So yeah, Windows 8.1's going away, but it left a little bit of nauseous terribleness injected in later versions of Windows, and we're stuck with it forever.
So why is it? So why is that noxious and toxic and bad and no good, etc.?
All right, so the show's only 2 hours, and I don't want to get gone, so I'll try to be.
Don't get him going. Brief. Do not.
No, there's a lot of history involved here, but basically there was a lot of political infighting at the time because of the group that was running Windows. They wanted everything to come from them. They were viciously removing everything from Windows that they had not created. They did not go forward with the programming model that Microsoft had created for originally for Windows Vista, which was a substantial improvement over what had come before. It was based on .NET, had major new ways to write application user interfaces with declarative programming of XAML and C#, and it was wonderful. And they just pretended it didn't exist. They just were like, we're just going to do it over. And they saw a threat from the mobile world, which was primarily iPhone and iPad, and they wanted to get in on that. And they decided to create something new rather than work with, say, the Windows Phone team, which had created their own .NET-based APIs through Silverlight to create applications. They could have just put Windows Phone app compatibility inside of Windows 8 instead of just doing their own thing all over again. And it just set the company back forever. And because the world has changed so much, no one's writing native apps for Windows anymore, new native apps, right? No developer woke up this morning and said, I got it. I got this crazy idea for an excellent new app. It's only for Windows. What's the Windows app API today? What's it called? Oh, there isn't one? Okay. No one is doing this. It doesn't matter. So it's over. Like there's no reason for Microsoft to create a new Windows app SDK or whatever you want to call it, new programming model. But the one we're stuck with is this piece of garbage that they created for Windows 8. And so they've been kind of making these small improvements to it over time to try to make it better. So the latest one is, and this is a nice change. It would have been better if the underlying thing it was supporting was good, but they decoupled these SDKs from specific Windows versions. So in the past, through almost all the way through Windows 10, if a new feature came out in UWP at the time, it was tied to some version of Windows 10. So if you didn't have that version of newer, you couldn't use that in an app because no one could, people running older versions couldn't access it. The way it works today is these things will now appear in any supported version of Windows. So that could be any version of Windows 10 or 11 that's still supported. So they broadened the availability of this crap that they made. So it's whatever, but it's just, it's a tragedy and it is over. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you look at Microsoft's developer website today, what you'll find is there's probably a dozen or more ways you could write apps that do run on Windows. The notion of native apps is pretty much over. There's absolutely there's no human being on earth that would, like I said, would ever wake up and say, I'm going to write a Win32 app today to run on the Windows desktop. It's not going to happen. So yeah, that's what we got. So I mean, that's why you see things in the store today, like the ability to get apps that come from different sources, the ability to run Android apps, the ability to run web apps, the ability to package desktop apps. That thing that they did in Windows 8 did not work. It was a mistake.
So then maybe this is maybe this is a stupid question, but what is your Note app written in? Not in this Windows stuff, right? Is it written in some other
My Note
language?
app? You mean Notion?
No. The Note. Didn't you make a Note app? Notepad.
Oh, the Notepad. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the reason, I'm sorry. I wrote at least 4 different versions. Well, 5 technically now. I've not published a newer version. But the reason but before I step through what those are made in, the reason I did that was because I was writing a history of Windows. And I used to be a developer, but by the time .NET happened in the early 2000s, I was no longer a developer. So I followed along as Microsoft improved .NET and released these things, but I never wrote apps that targeted any of these platforms. And so I wanted to go back later in life and experience that. So I decided to write a Notepad app. I was thinking it would be a fairly simple app to write, depending. So I've written it in Windows Forms, which came out with the original version of .NET in 2001 in both C# and Visual Basic.NET. I wrote a version for Windows Presentation Foundation, which is the thing I was talking before about that was excellent, that technically arrived with Windows Vista in 2006-ish. That's my favorite version of the app. It's the most powerful version. Not surprisingly, it's the thing Microsoft left behind. I wrote a version for UWP, which is the Windows 10 thing, which is a piece of garbage. And of course, it doesn't do as much as the WPF app. And then more recently, I've not published this, but I've also written a version that targets the Windows App SDK, which is that new version of UWP that's sort of a desktop app and isn't really, but it has basically all of the same limitations of UWP. So I don't think I'm ever going to publish that. I don't really see a reason to. It's really just the same thing as the UWP app, although I changed the UI. I'm looking at like WinUI 3 stuff, which is kind of a more modern user interface technology that Microsoft has. I've even thought about going back and writing a Win32 C++ version of this app just to do it, which would be futile and stupid, but that's how my brain works. But yeah, you could do, you could probably write some kind of a web-based version of this app. Microsoft has something called MAUI, which is a mobile app framework for apps that run cross-platform, across Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS. You might be able to do a really basic version of it in that, although I have looked at that and it's kind of terrible for my kind of app. I mean, it's for running, for mobile apps. But yeah, you could do. There's a million different things you could do. You can create apps in Flutter today for the desktop, run on Windows and Mac. I'm sure you could write a Notepad app in that. In fact, I believe there's at least one out there. But that's the thing. There's no, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you said, I want to write an app for Windows, someone could point you to a book or a resource of some kind and say, that's how you do it. There's one way, or one best way to do that one app. We've always had a couple of different ways, but now we have no ways. So you don't really write native apps anymore, right? You don't do that. That's dumb. Why would anyone write an app that only runs on Windows?
So what is the sort of, if I go and get a mainstream app, Slack, or I go and get
or Notion, like
I'm trying to think of
the app we're using now.
Yeah, Notion.
Notion,
are those,
I don't know how they built Notion, but it's clearly, it's the web app. So clearly this is a packaged web app. Notion runs on the web at notion.com or notion.so or whatever it is. If you sign into Notion, you'll see this. It's exactly the same. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is how they did it. So I don't know what they used exactly, React Native or whatever. I have no idea, but it's clearly a web app. Teams is a web app.
What's the Office suite written in?
So that's well, that's such a legacy. Office dates back to the 1980s. So this is a weird. It depends on what platform you're talking about. The version of Windows is a lot like Windows itself. It's a bunch of different things. But what they've done in recent years is they've changed how you extend these apps, and that programming model has evolved over time to the point where now it's a web app. They use web technology to extend these native apps. So if you want to write a plugin that works in Outlook.com on the web or Outlook on the web for Microsoft 365, Outlook for Windows or Outlook for the Mac, you do that with web technology. And you could write one thing that works everywhere.
Most developers are, if they're writing for Windows, they're probably doing sort of a web app or web extension.
I don't think there are any people targeting Windows for starters. So what I would say is most people who consider themselves to be Windows developers are probably supporting older code bases of whatever kind. In other words, their company or their company typically, or they have an app that has been around for a long time, was built on whatever set of technologies, and they're maintaining it and maybe updating it, but they're not going to rewrite it from scratch. And if you were going to start today from scratch, you might want to reach multiple platforms, and that might limit your choice. You might say, well, I'll use Flutter or React Native or whatever it might be.
Electron, or is that just Mac?
Yep. Electron is what Notion is written in. I just looked it up.
Oh, it is. There you go.
It's
okay. Yeah.
Also what Teams is written in, but that's going to change.
Yeah, Electron has a bad reputation for being kind of heavy and resource heavy. But
so then forgive me, Mary Jo, but Paul, what about all of the games that work on Windows that don't work on Mac?
Those are native apps. Those are native apps. I mean, those are written in some combination.
The engines are written in the native, and so then they can build a game on top of it. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So
that's why it's hard to bring a game to Mac or Linux from Windows, right?
They're
completely different.
In the old days, when Paul and I were young cub reporters, people used to talk about killer apps for Windows all the time. Like, what's the next killer app for Windows? What's going to be the next killer app for Windows? No one ever says that anymore, right? Like, that's not a thought, right? Like,
I could find this. In my on again, off again days with Steven Sinofsky, we had kind of a hate relationship. He revealed to me at one point, and I think this was Windows 7 timeframe, that the top 10 apps for Windows in order were Chrome, iTunes, and then a bunch of things that were utilities that made Windows work differently. And like that was the whole thing. Like there was nothing else going on. And the problem that they saw, and he saw certainly, was that Chrome and iTunes were both other platforms that would get you out of the sphere of Microsoft, And that's just this is just in whatever that came out 2009, so it was like right after the iPhone, and in the years since we've seen a lot of push toward mobile app development, of course, and then web app development, and Microsoft they've done what they can do to bring those technologies to Windows, so you can create web apps already. There are a lot of them. I don't know what all these things are built in that I use, but I bet half the apps I use are kind of web based in some way.
For me, I bet it's even more than half. I use a lot of web apps, right? And I often prefer the web apps. Like I always, when people say they're taking away the native window app and they're saying use the web app, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes the web app is better. Here's an example: New York Times. New York Times actual app is terrible, horrible. New York Times on the web is amazing. They're not the same, and it's a completely different experience. And anybody who says, "Oh, I'm mad they're taking away X app for Windows," I'm like, try the web version, like TweetDeck and Twitter, right? Like TweetDeck, right? Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people care, and I have to say, I probably don't care either. Honestly, I mean, in the sense that if I run, Microsoft Word is some combination of crazy things. I'm sure Notion, like you said, is Electron. I might have a Notepad used to be a pure Win32 app. Today, it's kind of a weird bastardized thing that has WinUI 3 and.
Hey, watch it! You're talking about my app.
Well, it is. No, it is. It's It's not the same. It looks a little different, but it's actually very different.
Spotify, probably Electron.
Almost certainly, yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet the Windows Spotify app looks virtually identical to the web app.
Right.
I bet they are.
I feel like when Microsoft first talked about UWP back with Windows 8, I feel like the reason they were doing it was Sinofsky and his crew thought they actually could get people to start writing natively for Windows again, right? And they even thought they could get Win32 developers to really basically rewrite their apps in UWP, right? And all the Win32 developers are like, nope, we're not doing that.
God, I'm getting PTSD just thinking about this.
Sorry, I know.
No,
sorry.
my brain is like flashing with all kinds of things. A couple of things to what you just said. You're right. They knew that they had lost developers. So one of the things they did was that one Windows thing. And they would thought, we have all these people supporting legacy code bases. What if they could bring their apps to the Xbox and the HoloLens and the Surface Hub and whatever else was coming, Windows Phone briefly, right? I mean, now we have this body of devices that is over 1 billion large. It's as big as what Apple and Google have roughly. We're in the game. And okay, that makes some sense. They did a lot of work to bring code base from other places into Windows with those bridges. Remember, they had ways to bring iOS code, Android apps, web apps, like classic desktop apps into the store. They did that kind of work, and that kind of went nowhere. But I don't. I don't get. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's because the idea of one Windows never made sense, right? Like every time they talked about this, okay, so some people might want to write an app that will run on Windows desktop, phones, and HoloLens, right, and Xbox. I'm like, okay, show me an example of an app that would be that app, because I used to kiddingly say, like a CRM app. Okay, yeah.
Exactly right. No, that is the problem. And Mike had asked me about like the Notepad app I wrote. I mean, I could probably use Maui to write some kind of stripped down version of this app that would run sort of on Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS, but. Why?
Like, why?
Who would want to use such an app?
I would want it. Me.
You would want a Notepad app on Android?
There's no Notepad for Android, right? I've been using Keep on Android, right? So it's good, but it's not Notepad.
So I think the apps that kind of solve that problem are things like Notion, where you write into something and then you open it up later on your computer and it's there. Yeah. Like a Notepad app is just a standalone app that you'd have to, I don't know, save to OneDrive or something.
I know. I don't really need it, but it's just every time I am like, let me just use my phone to look at that Notepad file that I just put on my desktop. And I'm like, well, yeah.
Anyway, the point of this 30-minute discussion was Windows 8 was cancer, and we're all stuck with it.
Stuck with it, but nobody's using it, so it just kind of sits. I guess
everyone is using it in some way. You may not realize it, but like those apps are all over Windows, right? They're still there. I mean, Notepad is like I said, I call Notepad kind of a bastardized. I don't know what you call that thing anymore. That has a WinUI 3 front end. I don't know. I know it has the Office version of the. What do you call it? The rich text editor, which is not what it used to be the plain text editor that was in there. They've completely changed it, right? It works fine. It's a simple app, And there used to be apps that I thought were good apps that showed off the strength of this mobile platform, which was, like I said, pretty bare bones. But like when Groove Music was an ongoing concern, and they had Groove Music Pass, that app, as it was in probably Windows 10, I guess at the time, was great. And it's not complex like Microsoft Word or any of the Office applications, but it fit well within what was possible with that kind of an app model. The new Outlook that's coming down the pike, the people who are freaking out about that are the people who are used to the powerful desktop version of the app. And they're looking at this thing like, what is this? This is like a Fisher-Price toy. If I wanted to use the web version of this app, I'd be on the web, But that's kind of the way the world's going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think somebody who's saying this, Rob Bott in the Discord is saying, what kind of an app do people even need these days, and why does it have to be on a Windows computer? You know what? It doesn't, because I've lately have been using a lot on my phone and on my Windows computer, Office.com, the Office app, which is a stripped down version.
That's a great little app.
Right?
Yep.
Stripped down version of the core Office products. Not for everybody. If you're a power user, you're going to see things you don't have that you want. But on my phone, when I need to do a signature on something, I can do that.
You want
so
to open
fast.
a Word doc or a spreadsheet, like it works. Yeah. And Microsoft people 5 years ago were manually installing all of the Office apps, Office Lens, OneDrive, all these different things, and I'm sure some of you still do. But for the core Office stuff, like that one app, which is kind of, if you think about it, goes back to that Office hub that we got in the original version of Windows Phone, which I thought was a good idea, is that kind of thing, like an all-in-one app that has the core Office apps kind of built into it. It's a good mobile app.
Yeah, I think that kind of the theoretical or bigger picture part of all this is, why do you have to work the way you always worked, right? Like, just because I'm used to Notepad, do I really need Notepad everywhere? No, I do not, right? Like, there's other ways to do the job, but it's hard to change the way you do things because you get
changing
habits.
Changing workflow is horrific. Yep, absolutely.
As long as we can keep it going, we should, because if enough people are doing it. I mean, I did that calculation.
What's that?
I was just going to say, you said, was it 3% or 4% of
3.06 or something.
Yeah, it's 42 million people who are still on Windows 8. 42 million.
Yeah, but
in the grand scheme of things, not many, but
300 million computers sold in a year, all running the latest version of Windows. This thing is X number of years old. These are people who don't care about anything. They're not. They don't care that they still have parallel ports on their computer. They don't care, that they still have a CRT screen. Like, they're just not. They're not engaged. So maybe they're running I'm sure they ever go to like a dentist's office or something.
That's what I just said.
Mary Jo said.
Right.
They're all dentists. That's who they are.
Yep. Always, because their job is not computer maintenance and support.
Right.
They're pulling teeth.
No.
They don't care about this thing. This is a tool.
Yeah, my dentist, my old dentist, not my current dentist, was running XP, like way past the end of life of XP. And I'm like, so I think I should switch dentists, because I know he's not a computer guy, but still, this is where he's
You don't know enough about Windows. I'm going to
your health records. Yeah, your dental records.
It's not a joke,
you don't want your
right?
teeth ending up on Reddit.
No, you do not. Yeah.
I don't know.
So then what I found interesting is that in the show notes, you've tied the end of Windows 8.1 to the end of an individual working at Microsoft.
Yes. I almost made a comment. I thought that was Mary Jo who did that. I thought that was kind of funny.
Of course it was. Right. So this week started off with a big announcement on Twitter by somebody who's been at Microsoft for a really long time and is beloved by the community. Jeffrey Snover is leaving. And this guy's been at Microsoft 22 years. He's been in the computer industry much longer than that. Started out at Digital, worked at Tivoli, IBM. He's best known for creating PowerShell, but he's done a lot since then. I got to interview him a couple of years ago about what he was working on most recently, and he was working on the substrate that's in Microsoft 365. So that's like the graph and all of the underlying database stuff that keeps track of all your chat records or your emails and such, so that you can have contextual awareness when you're using different apps. He's been a technical fellow for a while. He's the foil of Mark Rusinovich.
That's right.
Often.
They always have a nice competition for speaking engagement and so forth.
They do. Yeah, I was surprised because, everybody wants to try new things. But
I have a theory I want to throw by you about this because, like you said, he was around forever. He created PowerShell. PowerShell, for those who don't know, is a .NET-based scripting environment, a command line environment built into Windows now. It started out as something called Project Monad. It was something that he created and Microsoft did not want. He spent many years trying to convince them that they needed this. And you got to kind of put this in the context of when this was. So this is like probably very early 2000s.
Yeah.
NT was taking over the world in the form of Windows 2000, XP, et cetera. Microsoft was still fighting against Unix, sort of, but really Linux right at the time. And we all know how that went. But there was a real anti-Linux Unix thing at Microsoft at the time. And so PowerShell came up out of this thing, .NET era, anti-Unix command line environment that would take everything that was wrong about Unix command lines and make it better and more consistent and logical, et cetera. Yep. I looked at it and I thought, this is a programming environment, and this is something I don't think a lot of administrators are necessarily going to be able to handle. But it went on to great success and whatever. But the world changed, right? So all those on-premises servers running Windows Server or Linux or whatever are now in the cloud. And in Microsoft's case, those things they're not really Windows servers anymore, although some of them exist. They're Azure data centers, right? And that I think that transition might have impacted Snover and PowerShell. That stuff kind of went away, but the management of this stuff, in many cases, is in Microsoft's hands now, not in the hands of admins working at individual companies. I think the shift in the world kind of de-emphasized the need for something like PowerShell. And I don't mean to say that, I know people out there like, what are you talking about? I use it every day. Of course you do. Some people do, of course. But if you look at Windows Server today compared to what it was 5 and then 15, 20 years ago, the number of workloads in this thing is going, it's like down to nothing. And, basically what you have is federation services, so you can do that hybrid environment where it works with Azure, certificate services, and probably directory services for those people that need that kind of thing. And there just isn't as much need to automate on-premises servers as there was, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder if that didn't play a role, with him moving on from that part of the company.
Maybe. I think he's a guy who's always reinventing himself, right? If you look at the talks he did when he came over to work on Microsoft 365, he, I think, is one of the best people at Microsoft to explain really difficult concepts, right? Yeah. I've seen people on Twitter who work at Microsoft saying, this guy can take the most complicated thing and make it understandable by anybody. And I think that skill can be applied everywhere, right? They needed it because they were in the midst of doing a lot of different things with the graph. And I remember when we first heard about the graph, we're like, what is the graph, right? What the heck is this? And he's exactly
the kind of person that could have grokked this and
and just run with it, right? I know. I'm going to miss his ties myself. I don't know. Anyone who's ever seen him speak, he has the most crazy, insane, beautiful ties, right?
Did you ever know Ward Ralston? And he used to work at Microsoft as well. He's long gone, but he was like Snover in the sense that he could take, and he was on server actually. In fact, his last job was Satya Nadella's speechwriter before Satya became CEO. But he was another guy, like people who can take complex topics and then present it in plain English and have it make sense to people are a treasure. It is so hard to find people like that. And
so
that will be missed.
I know.
Oh,
so the reason I put
next,
him, yeah. So I asked him, of course, being me, I'm like, all right, now you got to tell us where you're going next. And he's like, I'm taking the summer off and I'll tell you guys all in the fall. So he's going somewhere else.
And he's going to Meta.
So let's guess where he's going to go because I don't think he's going to be one of these Microsoft execs who becomes a venture capitalist. Like so many of them do that. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to go to another tech company. And maybe, I would say maybe AWS. I wouldn't be surprised to see him show up there.
What about VMware?
VMware just got taken private, right, recently?
Broadcom? Well, Broadcom's going to buy them, I think. Right?
Oh, right. No, sorry. You're right. Broadcom's going to buy them. I don't know. I wouldn't want to go work for Broadcom. They're kind of like the old they're like Computer Associates was.
You know who could really use his help a lot? You know where he's most needed and I would least like to see him go is Oracle.
No, Oracle. If he goes to Oracle, I'm never talking to him again. That's it. We're done.
Well, no, because I mean,
and you're taking all his ties.
The clarity that he could provide.
That's it. I'm going to cut his tie with a pair of scissors.
It might not be tech related. I know
it might not be, but I bet it is.
What if it's not a straight up tech company?
Guy. No, he's a tech guy. Come on.
You could. There are companies that are kind of. Companies like Tesla that are technology but not considered part of the technology. No, that's even worse than Oracle. No, I don't mean Tesla. I mean companies like Tesla. Like maybe there are food companies that are doing like someone joked about Soylent earlier or whatever. Like maybe there are things that are
ordering service. Woof or what's that one called?
No, you guys, this guy, he's done he's got patents on technology and stuff. He's staying in big tech. He's going to be a big tech guy.
Really? Okay.
Come on. Yeah, come on. He's going to end up being something big, I guess.
Maybe he could be like he could consult for people that need to understand tech better in government.
I know.
Or
that would be really
legal.
good, actually. That would be very interesting. Yep.
I don't know why we're speculating about. We should.
Look,
No, listen to this. Iridescent Ox in Discord said, I hope he gets MJ Foley's permission before taking his next job. And he will never hear the end of it. Jeffrey Snover, you hear? If you want to run it by me, I'm here for you.
He is a great guy. I hope whatever.
We never had him on Windows Weekly, did we? We should have. He would have been really good.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, he's a great guy. I was hoping this year Ignite would happen in person. I could see him. I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Last time I saw Jeffrey Snover in person, he was walking around like a homeless person in the Washington Convention Center. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I can't find the Microsoft booth." So I took him by the hand. I said, "Jeffrey, I'll lead you."
Oh,
I was with you. We ran into him together.
Yeah.
Is that Jeffrey Snover?
They're like, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, "He was wandering around over there, like he didn't know where he was."
Yeah.
Now that he's going to go work for TikTok, you won't be able to have him on Windows Weekly.
Well, that might not be a great move at this point.
Let me take a quick break, and we'll come back with the next segment of the show. Perhaps you can all think about some other jobs that he's jumping into. But I'll tell you about Tanium while you process. The industry's approach to cybersecurity is fundamentally flawed, and that is where Tanium steps in as a sponsor of this week's episode of Windows Weekly. IT management and security point tools offer only a small piece of the full solution needed to protect your environment, and many of them promise they can stop all breaches when they simply can't. Making decisions based on stale data and trying to defend your critical assets from cyber attacks with tools that don't talk to each other is no way for IT teams to navigate today's attack surface. It's time for a different approach. Tanium says it's time for a convergence of tools, of endpoints, and IT operations and security. They've got solutions for government entities, education, financial services, retail, and healthcare. You can trust their solutions for every workflow that relies on endpoint data. There's asset discovery and inventory, so you can track down every IT asset you own instantaneously. They've got risk and compliance management so that you can find and fix vulnerabilities at scale in mere seconds, threat hunting to hunt for sophisticated adversaries in real time, client management to automate operations from discovery to management, and sensitive data monitoring. You can index and monitor sensitive data globally in seconds. Tanium protects organizations where other endpoint management and security providers have failed. With a single platform, Tanium identifies where all your data is across your entire IT estate. It patches every device you own in seconds, and it implements critical security controls, all from a single pane of glass. You're wondering what people think about it? Well, Kevin Bush, the vice president of IT at Ring Power Corp, says, Tanium brings visibility to one screen for our whole team. If you don't have that kind of visibility, you're not going to be able to sleep at night. With real-time data comes real-time impact. I like that. If you're ready to unite operations and security teams with a single source of truth and confidently protect your organization from cyber threats, well, it's time you met Tanium. To learn more, visit tanium.com/twit. That's tanium.com/twit. All right. Back to the show. It's time to talk about Windows 11.
All right. Before you do, though, what if he goes to Tanium?
I mean, hey, there you go.
No, seriously, a bunch of Microsoft people, including Michael Niehaus, went to Tanium, right?
Oh, really? Okay. So it's appropriate.
Right.
What if he went to a hardware maker, like a Qualcomm or a...
Has he not updated his bio yet?
No. He's taking the summer off.
Oh, and that includes bio updates. I forgot. Yeah. If you're on break, you can't update your Twitter bio. So
July 1 is his last day. Tomorrow is his last day at Microsoft.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so he's
coincidental
still
to the Microsoft fiscal year or not?
Yep. Probably not.
Someone in the IRC chat, Chickenhead21 says he's going to Foxconn. So you know what?
Oh, boy.
I think he's going to Hewlett Packard.
Wow. Interesting.
That's not a bad guess either. Mike Nash.
Oh darn! I was hoping it was
Hewlett
more of a
Packard,
ridiculous guess.
the enterprise company, or Hewlett
Right,
Packard, the
HPE
computer
or
company?
HP. Right.
Sorry,
which one?
HP, the computer company, was what I was going for. Or he's gonna. Oh, I know. Domino's Pizza. They're super techy.
That's it.
That's the
I
one.
think he's going
You
to
know, in
start
the future,
a Thai
you're going to be able to
company.
order a pizza on your computer, and Jeffrey Snover will be the reason why.
Yeah, and you're going to do it with an Electron app, not with a Windows platform.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely
It will not be a
Win
native app.
32. No.
Yep, that much we can guarantee.
Okay, let's talk about Windows 11.
This will last
Not
a
much
lot
to
less
say.
time than the last thing
I know.
because
We'll see, Paul.
No, we will. Well, all right. So just today, Microsoft released a new build of Windows 11 to the dev channel. So this is the channel that targets no particular version of Windows. This is the future. They seem to be kind of winding down on the version that's coming out in the fall, although there's been some movement on that File Explorer tabs thing, but we'll see what goes on there. This new dev channel build doesn't have any new features, so there's nothing interesting to talk about, but it does fix a bunch of bugs, including some serious bugs with that tabs feature in File Explorer. But that's pretty much the end of it. So, yeah, not much to say.
You were not lying.
But we'll be stuck with that cancer for the rest of it. No, wait.
There we go. All right.
Yeah,
well.
it is kind of quiet. Windows 11 just kind of chugging along at this point. Nothing too crazy. Although we should mention, speaking of Windows 11, our friend Rafael Rivera just took a job at Stardock this week working with Brad Sams. So the reason this is related is Rafael's great at finding all the hidden stuff in builds. Like, he is amazing at that, right?
He is the new Mark Rasinovich is what he is. I mean, as Mark has moved on to the cloud, I mean, he's that kind of Windows internals guy, you know?
Yeah. You ask him to find something, he'll find it. I said to him, I want all the undocumented APIs listed in a file. And he said, ha ha, wink. Okay, so he's going to do it. Anyways, that's great.
So, first of all, Stardock was smart to hire him. He was smart to go to Stardock. It's a great company.
Yep.
Brad Bordell is a great guy. Microsoft is
even though Brad Sams is there, even though Brad Sams is there,
it's no accounting for taste. I mean, nobody's perfect, but Microsoft should have hired Raphael years ago, and it is to their detriment that they did not. So there you go.
So we're going to see.
Now he's going to fix. He'll fix Windows from without.
He will. Like, there'll be all these new crazy Stardock products now that'll fix all the things everybody's crying about, and Raphael will be like, "Okay, you wanted this? Here it is. Here, guys. Here you go."
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Mary Jo, I forgot. Did you say your mom has installed Windows 11 now?
No, she has not.
No,
I advised
still on
her.
Windows
Is she on
10.
Windows 8.1?
She is not. No. Well, although, you know what's funny? My mom was on Windows 7 a long time, and every time I would say, it might be time to move past Windows 7. I'm not putting that thing that you have on your computer. And it was Windows 10. It looks so different. I can't even deal with that.
Really?
No, I'm like, Mom, it's going to be okay. So one day I just upgraded her, and it was fine.
Wow.
It'll be okay. Yeah.
Was it because she wanted to run
Windows
the
8? I just wouldn't allow Windows 8 in the house. Sorry. There's
Fair
just
enough.
Too much heavy.
Yeah.
I had
box
multiple
around
people
it.
who were friends of mine or in my family who contacted me after they got a new PC when Windows 8 was new and said, "What is this thing and how do I get rid of it? Can I just go back?" And it's like, "No, you bought a new computer. That's what you get." And they're like, "I can't use this." Like this is like they hated it. I don't see that reaction with Windows 10 is a little strange, but I guess
It was.
if you were
It was.
coming
My
from
mom-
Windows 8, you would have
people
loved
are
Windows
creatures
10,
of habit.
right?
People are creatures of habit.
Yeah,
like, look,
yeah.
when the taskbar menu moved to the center with Windows 11, people, I didn't think anybody would care. People were like crazy. People were like, why is it in the middle now? I'm like, it's the same. Like, guys, like
It works the same. It's just in the middle.
I'm like, okay.
See, I thought that was a nice change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of like
No
it.
one was freaked out because the start menu is actually detached from this taskbar for the first time ever.
No, the thing that was worth freaking out was the right click thing on the taskbar and how it took away a behavior that people who are power users were very used to. That was a legitimate complaint. But the look of it, like just moving, and people who are like, I don't like these rounded corners, or I don't like the new icons. I'm like, they're icons. They're fine. Just they're icons.
Oh, boy.
Like, let's go, right? People will object to anything. It's crazy.
That's true.
I mean, yeah. Again, we are creatures of habit at our root, and it goes against anytime someone ever tells me, "Oh, I love change. I live for change," I'm like, "You're a lying liar."
They're liars.
What are you talking about?
Liars.
Yeah. It's the change is the greatest cause of stress. Oh, after money.
Wait, change is money. Get it?
See, I made a fun. I didn't mean to.
All right, let's move out of Windows 11 since there wasn't much to talk about, and talk about Microsoft Edge, where there's quite a bit to talk about.
I know. I don't know what happened this week.
Well, let's start with me talking about gaming because that's a predictable thing, right? So
always
Microsoft is adding a bunch of gaming features to to Edge. As Paul says in the notes, we're not really sure why. I mean, the obvious why is they are searching for an in with consumers, and they have a good acceptance level with gaming. So let's put some gaming features in the browser and see if we can get more people to use Edge. So the good thing about these features that I'm going to discuss briefly is all of them are off by default except one. So you have to turn them on if you want them, which a lot of IT people were like, these better be off. These better not be on by default, right?
Right.
So there's a gaming homepage that's going to be personalized with news on newly released games, live streams, and all that kind of stuff. If you sign in with your Microsoft account, you also can see your Xbox, I can never say this word easily, Xbox Cloud Gaming Library right inside the browser. New games menu for Edge with a lot of free-to-play, casual games, solitaire, and all that kind of stuff are right there in this games menu on the side. Clarity Boost gives you clearer graphics when you're gaming. It improves the visual experience of console games in Xbox Cloud Gaming. The one thing that is not off by default is efficiency mode. It reduces Edge resources when a game is launched.
I just don't believe in any of that. So the Elvis laptop I have, when I say any of that, I don't mean the whole thing you just said. I mean the clarity boost nonsense.
I don't believe in anything in the English language.
So on my my Elvis Windows, what is it, a Surface Laptop 3, there's quote unquote HDR settings in the settings, but it's like fake HDR. And it basically just
HDR. Okay.
It basically just ups the saturation on the thing, and it makes
to make it look like ooh. Right?
Well, okay, so that's probably display dependent, right? My particular display does not support HDR, so I can't even turn that on.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So mine, I didn't think that the Surface Laptop 3 had an HDR display, but maybe I was wrong about that.
So go to setting, open Windows key plus I to open settings.
Okay. So I got to let it.
And then it's probably system display, I think. Yeah.
Windows key I. Okay. And then system display. Okay.
And then go down to, actually the second thing is HDR. So if you're in HDR under display capabilities, does it say HDR video streaming or use HDR supported? What does it say there?
It says play streaming HDR video supported, use HDR not supported. How can it play HDR video but not actually support HDR?
Oh, I can tell you how, because they turn up the saturation.
That's what I'm saying. It's fake. It's a fake.
That's funny. Mine is unsupported for both. That's interesting.
Oh, wow. They don't even want to fake it with yours.
Yep. I can't even fake it.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I wonder about that clarity mode, what that really means. Do they just bump the contrast temporarily, or what's the deal there?
Hey, it looks good in the demo picture. That's all I'm going to tell you.
So actually, I question this a little. I found the differences to be very subtle. You talk about the plane flying over Paris, I think it is.
Yeah.
I found those differences to be hard to discern.
You're a guy who sees fluent design, and you're telling me that's a subtle thing? Really? Okay.
Okay. Well, all right. So I guess what I'm questioning here is the reasoning. Why would Microsoft add gaming features to a web browser, right?
Yeah.
And just to step back on this for 1 second, I mean, how many people are using Edge on a non-Microsoft platform, meaning mobile like Android or iOS, or on a Mac or Linux, right?
0.01%.
Yeah, probably fewer people that are using Windows 8.1, right? So if you're already running Windows or Microsoft Edge on Windows 10 or Windows 11, you're running, you can, the operating system has gaming features built into it. Like why would you add features like this to a browser? I'm wondering.
So I know what you're going to say, and I agree with you.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go
All right,
ahead.
Go ahead. No, I want to, okay, Nostradamus, go ahead.
Edge OS. Edge OS.
Right. All right, fine,
I was
going to
guess
But the point
that
is,
too. I swear
Right?
I was going to guess that too. Okay.
because, by the way, there's like a task manager thing built into this now.
Right.
That efficiency mode thing that you just mentioned, if you go to the, do I even have this browser open? If you go to Edge and go to the menu, there's a thing, where did I just see it? There's an entry called Performance. And it's this efficiency mode. This is like power management just for the browser.
Yep.
What? Like that's interesting, right?
So I asked them. I asked them if this was why. I actually sent an email and I'm
They're
like,
never
can I
gonna
ask
say
you a
yes to
question?
this.
Are you guys adding all this? I didn't say crap. I think I said these
You probably did say
extraneous
crap,
features. I might have said it.
Yep.
I might have. Okay. To the browser because you're going to turn the browser into an OS like Chrome OS equals Edge OS. And they said, we'll get back to you. And they haven't.
They said we'll get back to you.
They're not going to. They're going to come back and say,
no, but we'll get
non-committal.
That's
Microsoft often reconsiders how they deliver
that means
things to end
they have
users.
to think about what they're going to say next, as opposed to just saying straight up no.
Here's the PR-friendly way to answer that question. You would just say something like, our telemetry data shows us that every single person who uses Windows uses a browser. And of the people who use Windows, 80% of them or something use their browser primarily. They just use the browser.
That's me.
So
I'm
it's
an example of
important
that
to add those features to the browser because that's where they're needed.
Discoverability, right? Yeah.
Well, and
They could say
the
that.
browser has a certain set of performance profiles and usage patterns that are just unique to browsers, and the way that's you can answer it that way. But I still wonder, like, I wonder
too.
Are they moving in this direction?
I wonder.
That's a weird thing to add.
They keep trying to figure out how to compete with Chrome. They even have an internal initiative called Chrome Compete, right? Like they know they need to compete with Chrome OS and Chrome, even though they're Chromium-based browser.
Yeah.
They still need to compete with them, right? But how do you do that if you're Microsoft? They had 10x as the idea for a while, then they killed 10x, right? And now
that's what I'm wondering if it isn't like the next 10x, like the Chrome OS Compete kind of thing, like. In Windows 10, when that first came out, remember there was like Candy Crush and these terrible other little game things that were built into it. So now you're saying, you're saying, I mean, now it is happening. They have this games menu and there are little webby games built into it. And maybe it's like what I said, most people are using the browser all the time anyway, so you put this in front of them and now they'll play these games. And oh God, they're web games, so that's fun. We can put Bing ads and whatever nonsense up there. And maybe that's all it is, but
maybe.
It seems like an odd thing to bog down a web browser with, to me.
Yeah. I mean, they've also got a ton of shopping stuff in Edge, right? And I guess you could say maybe they have telemetry data saying how often when someone goes into a browser are they actually looking to buy products, right?
Right.
And that's how Microsoft lives and dies by telemetry, right? Like this is how they make decisions all the time. If they see X number of people go into a browser and start doing comparative price shopping, they're like, you know what, we should add shopping to the browser, right? They do this. This is how they make decisions.
I honestly, shopping is defensible. It's not something I necessarily want personally, but I acknowledge that that's how people shop. Right? They're in a web browser. Yeah. So, and we both experience that thing where we're looking at whatever website and a coupon comes down and you save 10% or 15%, whatever it is. Like that's actually worked sometimes. It doesn't work all the time, but
I shut it off because it got too bogging down.
Yeah, too spammy. Like, yeah. No, but like I said, it's not for me, but I understand it. Some people would like that. I'm coming up short on who would like this. The people who are casual gamers, which meaning non-gamers, where you're standing in line at the checkout counter and you get a few minutes to kill, you play a little game on your phone. That's where you're doing that. You're doing that on a phone.
Right.
No, if you're playing games in your web browser and your computer at work or whatever, or during the day, you're just wasting time. Like you're not even, that's stuff that's not work. It's like that search highlights thing where you go to search for something explicit, and it's like, hey, we know you're searching for something that you want to know about, but here's some other crap over here. Why don't you look at this instead? Like, that's just a distraction. That's a really weird thing to do to people.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this. Like, I don't quite understand the rationale behind it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't it be that so right now, I was going to say right now, if you want to play Xbox live game streaming, live game cloud on an iPhone or an iPad, you can do that from the browser, right? But you have to use Safari.
Safari. Right.
Yeah, so that this doesn't quite add up.
And by the way, if you wanted to do that from your PC, you could do it from Edge. But there's an Xbox app. It's built into Windows, and it's better than Edge. Like, I don't know, like what I don't. That's what I mean. Like, I don't understand.
It might be a way to try to get more people into gaming, right? Like, so you just said there's an Xbox app built into Windows. I don't think most non-gamers know that is there. Right.
Well, more to the point, like, why would they? In other words, like a casual gamer, which again, I don't.
Like, say you're somebody casual gamer, you know, like you know what Xbox is, you've heard of it, but
it's hard for Paul to think of himself as a casual gamer. No.
I mean, I do not play games on my phone for sure, but I mean, I do like a crossword puzzle, from time to time or something, but. I guess what I'm saying is, yes, I agree with you. A typical consumer who doesn't consider themselves to be a gamer could open the Windows 11 Start menu and see an Xbox icon, and what they would think is, that's not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah. Right.
That's for people who play Call of Duty or whatever. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that might be why Candy Crush and whatever else was in the Windows 10 Start menu. Solitaire is there again in the Windows 11 Start menu.
Yeah. Right.
I don't, but are you telling me that like it's not in your face when you go to Edge? So the Edge menu already has like 127 items. It has
so many things. I know. It's hard to even find what's in there. It is.
Yep. And it's so far it cascades off the side of the screen. And it's like, it's just one of many things that's there. I don't see the need for it, basically.
I wonder if they'll do some kind of a prompt or ad. Like, what do they call those things that we think are ads? They don't think are ads.
Suggestion.
Like, by the way, suggestion. Yeah. By the way, did you know you can play a game right in your browser and then show you the steps, something like that, right? Not saying they should. I'm just saying.
As we were talking, I just started a game of Solitaire in the browser, and by the way, I have an ad blocker actually. I don't see any ads, so that might be because of something I'm doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it looks like a pretty faithful version of the Windows version, basically.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
Does this make sense maybe for those, there's the one kind of Surface device that you constantly joke about being terrible, and I can't think of what it's called.
Surface. So many.
The one that's terrible?
Duo?
the Duo? Surface. Maybe
the dual
it's the
screen
Duo.
thing.
No, not that one. It's like a
laptop
tab.
Go.
It's like a laptop. That one, the Go.
That's just terrible
browser
because it's underpowered.
So what about browser gaming and for that?
Yeah. So anything cloud based is kind of levels the playing field, pardon the pun, because it's the power that's driving it is coming from the cloud. So that's actually one of the nice things about Xbox Cloud Gaming, this game streaming service that Microsoft has. You could use a Surface Go with that. You plug in your controller. It doesn't matter that your computer is not very powerful because this thing's coming down from the cloud. I don't know. I guess like I'm trying to understand.
The thin gaming client.
Yeah. Would it be better to play web-based games on that device than like native games? I mean, casual games, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know because I'm a fully grown adult and I use real computers. I don't. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. What other updates are coming to Microsoft Edge?
So let's talk about this other one, which is another one that you say, why are they doing this?
Right.
Right. I always forget the name of this feature. Collections, which I've used a couple times. Like when you're in Edge, there's a little. I don't even know what that icon is supposed to be. Right. I guess. like little, it looks like little plus sign on a little piece of paper, but that's collections. When you click on that, you can save things from your web browser right there in groups. So that if you want to go back and look for everything you saved, like looking, say you're going to have a birthday party, all the things pertaining to the party in a collection. Now they're adding stuff to it, though, that I'm like, so what does this have to do with collections, right?
Right.
It's almost like turning collections into Pinterest.
It's totally, and by the way, we call that P-interest around here.
P-interest. We do.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I said I misspoke. P-interest.
I don't know how long you've been on the show, Mary Jo, but
Right. So you can follow people like on TikTok or YouTube or here's one I never heard of, Billy. Okay, whatever that is.
that's got to be an Indian or Chinese thing or something. I don't know.
So you can add like a link there and have the content automatically updating. But again, why is this in collections, right? I don't know.
I suppose.
Can I clarify something? Was it that collections before were kind of like folders and inside were web pages that you stored? Now collections can also store images and
web
videos?
pages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now, so they just added images and videos. But yeah, it was basically, the theory here is you're researching something. You might be looking at cars, like you want to buy a car and you want to collect information from different sources and have them all in one place. It syncs to all your devices. So if you're using a Edge on on your phone, like one of the 1%ers, you'll get it there too, I guess. To me, I never understood this being built into the browser. I say things like that a lot. I see this as more of an extension. I also would have argued that they have something called OneNote that they could just integrate with that, and why not just expose a OneNote page of some kind as
Right.
But they didn't do that. So because it's Microsoft. But yeah, so now the way I think of what they're enabling, it's like social features, right? Where people might want to make their collections
share
public.
Your collections.
Yeah, like maybe I would not do this, but maybe I'm looking to buy a new smartphone. I create a collection of good resources for smartphones, and then I share it with the world, and maybe someone would want to see that.
You could create a collection to go along with your YouTube series on buying a house in another country.
You could.
A collection, things I want to buy for the apartment. God, how tedious would that be? I don't know.
No, like
or
a
even
collection
links
of
to
restaurants.
this.
Restaurants that you love, right? Something
Yeah,
like that.
okay.
Even though you hate food, as we know.
No, I love food out in the world. Restaurant food is great. It's fair to say, actually, restaurants is an interesting example because if I wanted to create like a Google map that had my favorite restaurants in a certain city or area or whatever, how would I do that and how would I share that with anyone? Like, I don't even know. I suspect it's possible, right? You can create a custom map of some kind or whatever, but that's very difficult. So, maybe. But again, I would just point to this is in Microsoft Edge, the browser no one really uses. So what's the advantage?
What's
this
also
is like having a
fascinating
Zune player, and it's like I want to find someone else with a Zune so I can squirt music to them or something. Like,
no, don't say squirt. Come on, that's words banned.
I had to kind of calibrate because I always thought like Windows Experience blog, all those kinds of things were for people who were seekers, but this text leads me to believe that this is something that they think that normal people are going to read because it's, or I should say average people are going to read.
Yeah.
It says, remember, if you're running a Windows PC, you already have Microsoft Edge installed.
It's so
okay, that's who they're talking to.
Because the people who would read this are like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Remember that we often end a sentence with a period.
No, you know what? You gotta look at these as aspirational, right? Like as ways that you say maybe this is how they think people will start using it on their phone because they'll have a collection on their PC that they want to share with themselves or others on their phone, right? Like they've got to be aspirational, right? This is what they have to be thinking. Like maybe if we do this, we'll get more people to try Edge, especially on mobile.
We should, to be fair, point out that we often complain that Microsoft has pretty much given up on consumers, but here is this little spark of light. Someone or someones at Microsoft believe there are consumers out there they can reach. This is very much a consumer feature. Maybe it's a creator feature, but kind of a consumer feature. Maybe. I don't know. I just don't. I don't know.
You know what Newman says in the Discord? I don't even think these arguments are that interesting. Like, are they useful or not? The question is, should these be baked into the browser or be extensions? Yes, that is the real question, right?
Yep.
That is the perfect.
Yeah, and so my solution for this was solved by the EU, which is that instead of like a browser ballot screen, there should be a browser feature ballot screen the first time you run Edge, and you can check off the things you want and uncheck the ones you don't. And
although
in
I
a
kind of
perfect
also
world,
hate those. That setup.
No, there is no perfect way to do this. But
fair.
My broader issue, just as kind of a technical person, and this is kind of specific to me because I use so many different computers, I would like that information synced to my account. So when I go sign into a new computer, those things I don't want on are just off. Just want them off. You know.
Yep.
Right? Or the screen comes up and it's like, here's the selections you made before. Just want to continue from here, or do you want to think about it? You know?
Yeah, Apple does that with the setup process, and they've just recently brought that to their Safari browser with the extensions that you choose to have enabled. It syncs across devices.
Yep.
That's such a good idea. I missed, Mary Jo, the computer vision stuff that they're doing with collections that actually kind of creeps me out.
You talk about the visual search?
Yeah. So basically, as you're adding photos and stuff to your collections, then it will look at your collections and use computer vision to show you other things out there that are compared to what you have. I don't really want it doing that.
Yeah, same.
Well, you might. I mean, I'm not defending the invasion of your privacy, but
I was going to say, in and of itself, that would be nice. But where else is that data going? That's what I want to know.
Right. Do you want this feature on or off? Yes or no? Like, here's what. We're going to show you.
Everything we just discussed is the difference between convenience and choice. And
it is.
Choice is one of those things that's good in kind of a vague sense, but when confronted by choice, it becomes tedious, right?
Yeah.
And I vaguely, I sort of think it would be nice, like I said, have this screen where you can, check things off, whatever. But the reality is, anytime you set something up, whatever it is, Windows, a browser, whatever, there's so many things you have to step through. It's like, I just want it. I installed it so I could run it, not so I could take a quiz. I'm not like, it's like a survey. Like, it will only take 5 minutes of your time,
Now, the reason they might not be turning these into extensions is normal people don't even know about extensions, right? Like true normal users don't, right? By the way, I just got an email from Microsoft about the Edge OS question. The answer is, we have nothing to share. Look at me.
You guessed it. You predicted it.
To share. I because I'm so well versed in Microsoft speak, I find it interesting that they did not say at this time. Right?
Let me double check if they said that.
Yeah, because they often will add that at the end where you're like,
they did not. Just no.
Does this mean you will have something to say about it later?
Say later? Great.
All right, there's still a lot more to talk about with Microsoft Edge, but I do want to take a quick break and then we'll get back to that. So I can tell you about HackerRank, who are bringing you this episode of Windows Weekly. Between those deadlines and frustrating interview tools that aren't set up for technical interviews, conducting a tech interview might be the last thing you have time for. You've got too much on your plate. You have to spend the first 10 minutes of your interview just trying to set up an environment to share code from a dozen documents. This wastes your time and your candidate's time. Fortunately, HackerRank has developed an IDE, that is an integrated development environment, just for the tech interview process. With a set of easy-to-use interview tools, you'll quickly find the best developers for your technical projects. The developer interview tools include a pre-made question library with more than 2,500 questions, so you'll quickly find the right questions for your coding needs, a code playback feature so you can review the candidate's coding approach and score their skill levels, and a built-in whiteboard so you can collaborate in real time to see how problems are solved. Look, it is time to reboot your technical interview process with HackerRank. Click, interview, done. Start using HackerRank for free today and see how much better a technical interview can be. It's time to reboot your technical interviews with HackerRank's easy-to-use tools. With a pre-made question library, code playback, and built-in whiteboard, you will be conducting better technical interviews and instantly identifying the right talent. Go to hackerrank.com/WW to start a better tech interview for free today. That's hackerrank.com/WW. Thanks so much to HackerRank for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. And now we're back to the show and back on the edge.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
That's what you're feeling about WebView2, right? That's your response to WebView2 is wow.
No, actually, WebView2 I don't have a problem with.
Okay.
So WebView2 is the embeddable version of the Edge rendering engine that developers can add to their application. So, and I mentioned earlier how Microsoft extends Outlook with web components. This is actually how they do that, and on Edge anyway. No, that's not true. And no, that's not true at all. I'm sorry. This is how they do that. They use the WebView2 component. So the original WebView ran on the non-Chromium version of Edge that debuted in 2015. It used the old IE Trident style engine. This is the version that's built based on Chromium. It has been available for not quite 2 years, but developers who used it would have to ship the add-in with their code, with their app. Windows 11 includes it out of the box, so to speak. So this is the first version of Windows that has it. But now they're bringing it to Windows 10 PCs as well, starting with Home and Pro for consumers. So the idea here is that developers will no longer need to bundle the WebView2 runtime with their apps. It will just be part of the PC. So just making it more broadly available, basically. See, simple.
Yeah, simple. KISS.
Non-controversial.
Yes.
And now taking a step out of the Microsoft ecosystem, let's talk about Mozilla and one of my favorite browsers, Firefox.
Yeah, just a couple of quick non-Microsoft browser updates in tandem. Edge 103 just came out. That's the version that includes that new gaming functionality. Mozilla just released Firefox version 102. And this just has a couple of new features, nothing serious. They've enhanced subtitles and captions to work with more services. They have improved anti-tracking capabilities. And now the downloads panel, which I actually don't like in Firefox, but now it won't. I'm sorry, it will open by default, but you can actually just have it not open if you want, because if you're downloading a lot, it's kind of annoying. You just turn that off. So nothing major this time around, which makes sense. There's a new version of Firefox every month. So why should we expect anything major every single month?
No new in-browser gaming in Firefox.
No, if you don't like that kind of stuff, by the way, Firefox is not a horrible choice. An even better choice, though, possibly, would be Brave. And I'll be talking about this one actually later as well. But a year ago, Brave launched Brave Search in beta. They've had 2.5 billion queries against it. This is actually built from scratch. It's not based on other search engines, which is,
wow,
I would have said was
that's
impossible.
Yeah.
But, it's truly independent. They're taking an interesting stance on the privacy, freedom of speech kind of stuff too. So Brave Search is like GA. It's generally available. So it's built into their browser. This is, Brandon Ike, who's the guy who created JavaScript at Netscape, right? Yeah, at the time, is the CEO and I think the founder of this company. And he's taken, it's a really interesting stance. Like they perceive, they being Brave, that there is a real bias in search engines and what we see online, and that it has to do with just whatever biases are present in tech companies and so forth. And so one of the interesting things they're adding to Brave Search is this feature called Goggles, which, yes, is hilarious as a name. But the idea here is that you as the user can go through a list. It's a pretty big list, and say, I want my search results to include things like whatever, from whatever sources, and I want to exclude these sources. So if you are a heavily leaning in one way politically or the other, you can be like, yep, I only want to see that kind of stuff. I don't want to see this kind of stuff. And I don't know what to say about that. Like there's a part of me, I don't know what you call this kind of person, what I am, which is that I feel like we need to be exposed to opposing views at all times. And I think that's really important. And I think one of the terrible side effects that no one saw coming out of this ability to filter all the content on the web and only see the things you care about is that we are no longer shown these opposing viewpoints and we find them offensive. And this is, I think, part of the reason we all don't get along right now is I think we're like, everything is like black and white, and a little too black and white. And so they're kind of enabling that. And I don't know how I feel about that. But on the other hand, I do sort of appreciate the notion that big tech could be inherently biased in all kinds of things. We talked about the biases that Microsoft inadvertently built into AI, for example. They've been very upfront about that. It's not hard to imagine that Google, either purposely or not, might bias their search results in some ways for various reasons. Like they might want to promote their own services or whatever. They might want to highlight a political viewpoint that furthers their aims as a business. This is stuff that does happen and could happen for sure. So it's interesting. So I'm on the fence about this kind of stuff, but I do find it fascinating that Brave is creating their own, or has created now their own search engine. I don't know. I don't know. But it's further fascinating in a way that they have a feature called Goggles, which I still think is funny, but which will allow you to essentially filter the type of information you might see as you search for things, if that makes sense. Essentially creating your own personalized search results engine, I guess I'll call it. I don't know what else to call that. So, yeah, interesting.
Absolutely. And now for something interesting to some and not
Completely
interesting
different.
to others. Mary Jo, put on your goggles and put in your
Gaming
earplugs.
goggles.
Yeah, it's time for Xbox Corner.
Oh, this is nothing. This is the lightest Xbox segment in the history of Xbox segments. I can't believe this is all that we have. I know. I don't know what happened. Microsoft has revealed the 4 games that are coming to Games with Gold next month. This is the program where you get free games if you're an active subscriber to Xbox Live Gold or Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. They are are they Xbox One? I think I was going to say Xbox One, but I'm not 100% sure that's what they are. But I believe they are Xbox One and Xbox 360 titles. Beasts, Relicta, Thrillville, Off the Rails, and Torchlight. I have never heard of any of these games. However, they are worth $55. So if you like free stuff and you're paying for the subscription, but if you like to get these kind of perks, they will all become available sometime in July. They do some. It's different for the Xbox One and Xbox. It's screwed to even explain, but basically some of it happens. Let's call it the first half of the month, the second half of the month. I wish it was that simple, but anyway, this stuff is all coming next month, and that is all that I have for gaming.
Wow.
Ooh.
I mean, I could talk about some of my recent Call of Duty matches. I did have a particularly good game to.
We had a lot of gaming talk in the browser section, so I think we.
That was all
is
from
true.
you, though. But it's okay when you're doing it.
So this is actually where we'll take some time to chat with folks from the Discord, perhaps from the IRC. If you have questions in either of those places, feel free to type them in, and we may take some live questions if folks are available to do so. Just what I would like, if you want to ask a question on air, then type into the Windows Weekly chat and say, I want to talk on air. Otherwise, we'll do the questions as text. And it looks like we've got one already.
I would like to talk on air.
Oh,
Who do I tell?
Good. You can. So this is from Lowell, and Lowell writes, any news on direct storage on the PC? I think it's up to game developers to implement that per game currently.
I believe, now I have to look this up. Thank you for stumping me. Also, thank you for continuing the gaming stuff when I was unable to earlier. So it is, okay, I was going to say, I in my head, I was like, I believe this is available now on PC, and it is. So back in March, Microsoft made it available on PCs running Windows 10 or Windows 11. So, yeah, I don't. Direct storage is the technology they brought over from the Xbox Series X and S. It requires a specifically designed SSD with specific performance characteristics, et cetera. It's not something that most people are actually probably ever going to see, at least not in the next few years. But yeah, I don't recall hearing anything about this. Since March, we've had GDC, we've had not E3, but we've had a bunch of announcements around what would have been E3, and I don't recall hearing almost anything about direct storage for PC. It's kind of automatic on Xbox, obviously. I don't know. I don't recall hearing anything about that. I'm sorry to say.
All right. Here's one that I like from Newman. Have Mary Jo or Paul been following Steven Sinofsky's memoir/blog postings? Have you been keeping up with Steven Sinofsky's memoir and blog postings?
No.
I love this just absolute silence from Paul and a simple no from Mary Jo.
So I have not, but
no. Today somebody tweeted me and they said one of his latest posts mentions me, and I just
did it mention the time you hid in the closet when you were walking down the hall, or was it some other story about you?
I don't know what it was. I'm not a big person for reading industry books or even listening to industry podcasts, and also just because I had a bad history with him, I'm just not interested.
Yeah, so I have not read it either, although I have read small parts of it. But the asterisk there is I was writing my own history of Windows, and I did not want two things. I didn't want to be influenced by anything he wrote because he's a liar. And I didn't want to be confronted with something that frankly gives me my version of PTSD, which I already went through. Like the Windows 7 and 8 years for me were really tough because of Sinofsky. And when I was writing that part of the history, it was terrible. Like it was really hard. And I tried to leave as much of that out of it as possible. That said, I do read those kinds of books, and I do care very much about this history. I know he's going to color it to make him look more favorable, which I find disturbing. So I probably will, but I haven't yet. And I just know it's going to be traumatic for me to read because I know too much about what happened, and I know that he's not going to tell the truth.
I have to tell you, I must admit, known who Steven Sinofsky is for a while, knew the name, familiar, but I never knew what he looked like. And so I just looked him up, and I was like...
look at the picture of Oswald holding the rifle before he killed Kennedy. That's what he looks like.
I was going to say, I thought Google was showing me pictures of Jeff Bezos. He reminds me of Jeff Bezos.
Look up...
okay, let's see. What did you say to look up? Oswald...
holding the rifle.
I thought that was a joke.
No, that's exactly what he looks like, or looked like at the time. I mean,
if you really want a picture, look up skateboard and Sinofsky, and you'll see another picture. He used to turn the surface into a skateboard. He actually attached wheels to the surface to show it was strong enough to skateboard on.
What in the world? Oh my, he's like, his legs are up in the air.
No, I guess he really is a very good skateboarder. But yeah, it was weird. We were all kind of weirded out by it.
He did a lot of skating, that's for sure.
All right. Let's see what's next. Moving off of Sinofsky.
You gotta understand, we told this story recently, but Mary Jo and I both had the experience where people from Microsoft PR reached out to us after he was fired and apologized and said, we just want to let you know we didn't agree with what happened. It's going to stop. And he was just a horrible human being. That's all.
That's too bad.
Yep. Really bad.
Next question is from Professor Panda Bear, who asks me, how is Elvis? For people who are watching and don't know, Elvis is my Surface Laptop 3 with the sticker that Mary Jo brought me back whenever she...
blue? Is that the color?
I can't remember what it was called at the time. But it has the blue Alcantara, which is nice. And I
noticed you didn't crush any Cheetos into the Alcantara for some reason.
I didn't give it its full christening, no. But I do. So I like this little machine for multiple reasons. One is that it is lightweight, which is kind of nice. It is a Windows machine, which is something that I need from time to time. In fact, the interface that I use
all those native apps that we love.
Exactly. The interface that I use for my microphone, for some reason, the firmware updating process works better on a Windows machine. So I can plug it in there and use it there. But also, obviously, to just keep up with what's going on in Windows.
Is that an AMD or an Intel version of the Surface 3?
Oh, that's a good question. I bet you know where I can find that.
Windows Key
I think you
X
got it at
system.
the same time I did. Yeah.
Windows Key X.
System. And it will tell you what you have.
And then it'll tell me right there. Let's see. Intel i5.
Yeah, good.
It
that
gets
version
so
of the
hot
AMD
though.
chip was out of whack.
That's the only thing I don't like about it is how hot it gets.
Ooh, it gets
But
hot.
I have to tell you, whatever Microsoft is doing to have this thing go to sleep when it's not in use is pretty impressive because I can't do that with my Mac. My Mac the battery will still die even whenever the clamshell is down after a period of time.
I don't know if you got the
This
memo
will
on
last
Apple,
forever.
but Macs are perfect, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. But
No, they aren't. So I've always been impressed by that because I don't use a Windows machine very often, but when I do go to grab it, even though I hadn't have it plugged in and charging, I can lift it up and it starts shortly and I'm good to go and the battery's still pretty good. So I like that.
Interesting.
Oh, there is someone. Okay, we've got somebody who does want to ask a question live. So let's go to JT on the open mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Awesome, yes. So my question, now you got the video too. My question is, I use 1Password, and 1Password 8 is finally out for Mac, and it's kind of feature incomplete, but it is an Electron version that they want to sync fully back and forth with their Mac. Jarrett, you need to mute your mic. You're going to cause echo. It is finally out for Mac, and it's kind of feature incomplete, but it is. Oh boy.
There we go.
Server mute them. Do server mute, Micah, or John. You got server mute. Server
there's
mute,
a special kind.
Oh, that'll work too.
Yeah.
So I use 1Password 8, and they recently went to Electron version, so I have it on Mac and Windows. I trust my Mac's Touch ID for authentication. I don't know how I feel about using Face ID or whatever the visual ID on my Surface. How secure
Windows Hello.
is that really? Windows Hello.
Yeah, Windows Hello facial recognition.
Is that like a 3D depth perception where it can't be faked with a photograph? It is?
Yes.
It has like laser dots and everything.
That's right. Yep. It's safe. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's implicit. So the problem is if you're anywhere in front of the computer, you just sign in. I kind of prefer to get up to the computer, type in a PIN, although arguably a PIN is probably more easily bypassed or whatever. But no, it is. Yeah, no, it's safe. I don't think we have not really heard anything along the lines of Windows.
There's some people who've had trouble getting it to work, right? We've had that. I actually shut Hello off on my Surface laptop because it was.
Yeah, I don't use it either, but not because of any security concerns. Just because, like I said, I like to.
Same. And just for me, it was
reader, great.
Yeah.
You know.
It didn't recognize me a lot, and I trained it in different conditions: glasses on, glasses off, light, dark. I tried everything, and about a fourth of the time, I couldn't get it to recognize me. And I'm like, I'm going back to the pen. Sorry. Yeah,
that's really interesting because go ahead.
It's actually pretty reliable for me. In fact, that was the reason for my question. It's so quick to recognize me. It logs me in very quick that I thought there's no way they're doing a 3D depth mapping like the Face ID on the iPhone does. So I was concerned that
it absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically replacing
I'll post a link in the Windows Weekly Discord that gives you more information about how Windows Hello Face authentication works.
Excellent.
So
Thank
when you use,
for letting me ask my question.
Yeah, I don't use, so like I said, I usually use a PIN, but when I need to access like a password in the password manager, I'll have to enter my PIN, right? But if I'm on a computer that has a fingerprint reader, or I don't use Face, but use that instead. So because I don't use it, is this something like, in other words, you just you bypass you're not even aware that it's doing it, right? Does it throw up something and say, oh, you're good? Or does it, like what happens when you...
Oh, for 1Password? I can... Yeah. If he's not here with us, or if they're not still with us. You're still there, JT.
I'm still here. So I had installed it yet on Windows. 1Password Agile Bits. They just recently released 8 for the Mac, and I'm like, okay, fine. We're in Electron world
the
now.
Mac, it works with Touch ID.
Non-native, and I was asking the experts before I trusted it on my Surface laptop.
No, you can trust it. Right.
Let me see how it works, because I do have it
installed on something like that.
Oh, crud. I don't have it installed anymore because I had to completely... I was on the dev build, Paul, and I had to completely wipe this machine and start over. Okay. So I used to have it, so I don't remember now if it prompts you first or what happens there. Yeah, it's been a while.
I will try it out and put my experience in the Discord and share it with Mary Jo there.
Okay.
And Micah and John.
Yeah, please do.
Everyone there.
Thank you. Thank you for asking a question. And now let's see, was there somebody else who was wanting to hop on and ask a question before we had an echo going with two people? If not, Mary Jo, I saw you answer a question in the chat. Do you want to address that one?
Yes. So Lowell was asking about Viva Sales that we talked about last week, the CRM companion app. He said, is it going to work with anything besides Salesforce? Because they made a big deal out of it working with things other than Dynamics. They said it could work with any CRM. So the way that actually works is it'll automatically be integrated with Dynamics, no surprise. It'll also automatically have in-the-box integration with Salesforce. And then through the Dataverse APIs, Microsoft says Viva Sales will support additional CRM systems in the future.
So no.
For now, no. But they're saying it's possible to do. Like I guess just the third-party vendors would have to do it, or if you wanted to do a custom integration, I guess you could do that too.
Okay.
Yeah. And one last question before we take a break and then come back with our back of the book. They're asking both you and I, Paul, because you're coming from the Windows side of things. This is from Joe. How likely do you think it is that we'll see native Game Pass support on iOS and tvOS in the near future? I assume it's down to the two companies agreeing on a revenue split.
It's actually probably down to an antitrust regulator of some kind forcing Apple not to do what they're doing right now, right? So I just wrote something about this, and boy, I'm trying to remember where this came out of, but the real reason that Apple is not allowing Xbox cloud streaming on iOS or whatever, any of their platforms, is that gaming revenue through their App Store is like 80% of the revenues, in particular in-app purchases. And if Microsoft is able to bypass that because it's a streaming service, they're not going to get anything from it, and they're trying to make sure that they get those revenues. So, I think my understanding, maybe it'll be years from now, but at some point I think we'll find it. We'll hear the details. But Microsoft, I believe, did everything they could to make concessions to Apple to make this happen. But Apple basically wanted them to submit every single game as an individual app, which is not what the cloud streaming experience is all about. And kind of have control over those in-app purchases, frankly. So I don't see Apple ever agreeing to make those changes. I think it's going to require some antitrust regulator or some government basically to force them to do it. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for that, frankly.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't know when or if that's ever going to happen, other than outside of an antitrust kind of thing. I think that it would be nice if you could be what you wanted to be on every platform. I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody on MacBreak Weekly who was talking about how it kind of, I think it wasn't. I think it was you, Paul, when you mentioned that it kind of flies in the face of what Apple is doing when it comes to its own, the iPhone has this powerful chip in it and can do all of these things.
That was one of the other reasons. That's right. Yeah. In other words, right, Apple is we talked about this with the Surface Go just a little while ago. This notion that when you stream games from the cloud and the power has to be in the cloud, then any device becomes a gaming PC. Apple sells premium, expensive phones. Part of their power is through these chipsets they make that have awesome graphics capabilities. All of that is subverted by cloud streaming, and it kind of goes against the model of what they're doing. That came up out of it was part of a court case where someone at Apple had emailed Craig Federini and said we should buy a game streaming company, and he says no, that's against what we're selling. We sell powerful hardware. We want games that appear on the device, not games that stream from the cloud. So there were a couple of reasons, but basically what it boiled down to was that's against Apple's business model, so they're going to do everything they can to prevent it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what's not against our business model is taking a break to talk about a sponsor. So we're going to do that now before we come back with the back of the book. I just want to tell you about ITPro TV, who are bringing you this episode of Windows Weekly. You've heard about ITPro TV. But if you haven't checked them out, you need to. Your IT team needs the skills and the knowledge to ensure your business is a success. And with ITPro TV, more than 80% of users who start a video actually finish it. ITPro TV is engaging, and your team will enjoy learning on their platform. You can give your team the tools they need to make your business thrive. There are courses that are super entertaining, they're binge-worthy, and they keep your team interested and invested in the learning. The tech industry is evolving, it's always changing, and your team needs to be trained today. When a new software release, a system upgrade, or a cyber threat faces your business, well, ITPro TV offers the training and the perspectives of those disruptions within days, if not hours. So why is ITPro TV right for your business? Well, you can get all of the training and certifications for your team done all in one place. You're not bouncing from all of these different sites and services trying to get it all figured out. It all happens right there. ITPro TV has every vendor and skill you need for your IT team training. They provide Microsoft IT training, Cisco training, Linux training, Apple training, security, cloud, and so much more. So much that I'm running out of breath there. More than 5,800 hours worth, ranging from technical skills to compliance to soft skills. And, by the way, you can do so much with an ITPro TV business plan. You can track your team's results, so that way you can manage seats, assign and unassigned team members, access monthly usage reports, see metrics like logins, viewing time, tracks completed, and more. You can easily manage your teams, so that means subsets of users or teams by providing them with customized assignments, monitoring the progress, and reporting on usage of the platform. Assignments can be full courses or can even get as fine detailed as individual episodes within courses, and there's advanced reporting as well. Get immediate insight into your team's viewing patterns and progress over any period of time with visual reports. Don't forget, ITPro TV also has individual plans if you as an individual want to check it out. Give your team the IT development platform they need to level up their skills while enjoying the journey. For teams of 2 to 1,000, volume discounts start at 5 seats. Go to itpro.tv/windows. Make sure to mention WW30 to your designated ITPro TV account executive. That'll get you 30% off or more on a business plan. Thanks so much to ITPro TV for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. And now we head into the back of the book.
So, last week, I mentioned I'd written a series of articles called New in 22H2, which details the major new features in Windows 11 version 22H2. But in the process of writing the Windows 11 field guide, which requires an astronomical amount of research around like doing the same thing over and over and over again in different configurations, I was going through the Windows setup routine, and actually there are some changes in Windows setup between the first version of Windows 11 and the new version. And of course, one of them is infamous, which is that Microsoft is now requiring that individuals who install Windows 11 Pro, it used to just be home, sign in with the Microsoft account. You can't use a local account, or what Microsoft now calls an offline account. So I wrote an article about that. And most of it's not super interesting. It's just little graphical changes. They've added a couple of screens, whatever. And they took away that one feature. However, you can get around that. And so the tip this week is about how you get around that. And actually, there are different approaches. And actually, with Windows 11, the initial version, there were other ways to bypass this requirement for Windows 11 Home, some of which still work and some of which don't. But I just wanted to publish one that basically works all the time. There is a chance that this will not work in the future because Microsoft, but and I hope by publicizing this, I am not triggering that happening. But basically, when you get to the point in Windows setup, which for most people will be you turn on your computer for the first time, you just bought it, or you reset it, and you're like, whatever country, yes, do you want this kind of keyboard? Yep. Do you want to connect to the network? Some of the tips say, oh, don't do that, but actually Microsoft is enforcing this. They make you connect to the internet, and then they make you use a Microsoft account. And basically, to get around this at any point, you just hello, where am I? I lost it. You get to the screen where it's asking for your Microsoft account, and you type in a very specific Microsoft account, which is no@thankyou.com, which someone out there created and then entered the wrong password so many times that account is now locked, which means you can't sign in with it. So in that instance, they will let you sign in with a local account. Now, this particular account, Microsoft could get rid of it. They could fix it for some, they could get, there are any account that's locked, this will work. So there are probably other examples, but I thought knowitThankYou.com was kind of a cute one. So once you enter that password, that username or email address, you can enter any password. It doesn't matter. The account's locked. It's going to say, oops, something went wrong. And then you get a screen that says, who's going to use this device? And you can enter, Paul. I would enter like an offline account. So that's right now the 100% way you can bypass this. Windows 11 Home or Pro, 22H2. I assume it works with 21H2, but I'm not really testing that anymore. So that works 100% of the time. So if you're freaking out, there's always going to be a way to bypass it. Those ways are going to change. In the book, I actually have a second way to do this, which is a little more involved. But this is the way that, right now. Anyway, next week, maybe the stuff's working. I guess we'll see what happens. But right now, it works 100% of the time. So that's good. And then the app pick of this week, I had said to Leo some time ago, like, I feel like I've been moving in this direction for a long time, and I kind of dive into it, and then I kind of go back out, and I kind of dive in and go back out. And this past, few months, if you've been paying attention to my app picks, I've been recommending various web browsers, right? So I've gone back and forth, and I still go back and forth in some ways, not just on Windows, but on my mobile devices, which browsers I use. I use Safari a lot on my iPhone and my iPad. I've gone in and out of Firefox a lot, Microsoft Edge, which I've actually been using a lot recently, Chrome, of course, Vivaldi. But I always feel like I'm heading to Brave. Like I'm going to end up at Brave, And because of that announcement that I mentioned earlier about Brave Search, I went and looked at Brave again, and this time it kind of clicked. Like I realized, like, this is what I'm looking for. It's a Chromium-based browser. It does all the anti-tracking, all the anti-pop-ups, all the stuff that you want, that you need extensions for in other browsers. And they've made it easier to do things like syncing your data. So most people are going to get this thing, install it. It will say, hey, do you want to import your stuff, your passwords, whatever data from other browsers? Yes, you choose the browser. It just kind of works, and that's fine. But if you want to use it on mobile, they used to have a really strange system for setting that up, but it actually works pretty well now. So you basically have a barcode or a QR code, scan it with your phone, and you can just basically put a bunch of computers, or devices, I should say, into the same system. So if you add a password on your phone, it will add it on your desktop as well, like you would expect, right? I mean, like every browser works. But I think that I think that part of it is really interesting. I think the one of the reasons I like it, just usability, is performance. I've had issues with Firefox especially, but also with Edge and it's not just tab sleeping. There's some weird stuff with Edge where I'll go to like a tab and it's like the first time I ever loaded it and it takes a moment, or things seem to take a little while. And it's one of the reasons I kept going back to Chrome. But Brave actually has that performance characteristic I like. It's super minimalistic looking, which I like. It doesn't have all that crap that like Edge is adding to the menus and all that, which I really like. Obviously, the tracker stuff I talked about. But I actually, this is a weird thing to say, but I kind of like the way they've rethought how sync works. And I know that's kind of goofy. If you use Firefox or Edge or any browser, really what you're doing is you're signing in with an account. It's looking at some cloud thing, and it's bringing down your stuff. And that takes some time or not much time at all. Like if you sign into Chrome for the first time, all of your extensions kind of blow down pretty quick. If you do this on Edge, that takes a long time, actually. So the way they do it on Brave is very different, but I'm actually sort of starting to appreciate it. And it's basically, they're not storing that stuff in the cloud anywhere. You have a version of Brave out there in the world somewhere, and you have another device. You're like, I want to use Brave on this one too. And now what you're doing is you're connecting those two things. And so it will make a connection to that other device, grab your Brave data, and then that's it. Brave's not involved up in the cloud. Your data's not out there somewhere. I'm starting to wonder if this thing that they did, which they designed specifically not to be hosting your data, right? I'm actually kind of wondering if this isn't the best way to do this kind of thing. So I've been using this on I've kind of moved into it because I use a lot of different computers, but just a day or two ago, I put it up on this computer I'm using here. But the laptops I use, it's on my iPhone now. I've really, like I said, like a year ago, I would have been like, I feel like I'm going to end up there, and I'm not. I'll still have to test other things, and we'll see how it goes. But I think it's finally clicked with me, and I think I could picture I could picture sticking with Brave for the duration.
Awesome.
It's a good one. Yeah.
All right, Mary Jo Foley, tell us about your enterprise pick of the week.
Right. So in July, coming up soon, very soon, Microsoft is going to hold their annual partner conference that is called Inspire, INSPIRE, July 19th to 20th.
Perspire.
They should. So in the past, when it was not virtual, it was for partners, Microsoft partners, hardware partners, software partners, reseller, system integrator. They let a few press come in. They let me come in almost every year. One year they let Paul, I think, come in. Maybe just one, and that was it.
I went through a
They
couple.
said, no.
That guy.
That guy, here he is.
That was
again.
one of my favorite shows. It was great.
Me too.
It was
It's a great
always
show.
newsworthy. Yep.
Always. There's always news at the show, not just for partners, not like partner program only. There's usually a lot of product news, and there's usually a very strong indication of strategy, like where they're going to go in the coming year, because they need to tell the partners this, since the partners are their sales force. So the good news for everyone at home and listening to the show is you can attend Inspire because it is virtual. You can register now on Microsoft's site, inspire.microsoft.com. If you register, or even if you don't, I believe, you can see the session list that just went up yesterday, the session catalog. There are 200 sessions up there so far. What's interesting, I scanned through all the sessions yesterday, and a lot of them look like they're kind of repeating some of the information they shared at Build. But there are a few things, if you're interested in these topics, that you might especially want to attend for. There is quite a bit about industry clouds and where Microsoft's going in the vertical space. It looks like that's going to be a big emphasis at this show. So, they have these cloud for healthcare, cloud for retail, cloud for manufacturing, all these kinds of things. I think there are going to be more clouds like this, maybe automotive, agriculture, other things like that. These are just bundles of all the Microsoft Cloud products with various integrations specific to vertical markets. There's also, very surprisingly, a session on here by Scott Manchester, who is the Windows 365 Cloud PC guy, talking about something that Panos announced a few months ago, the ability to integrate your local Windows desktop with Windows 365 in the cloud. So I'm wondering if they're finally going to start sharing details of what that looks like and how you can get in on the test pool for that, because Panos announced it and they didn't really have anything more to say. It's like, yeah, coming in the future, you're going to be able to do this, work wherever you want, some on the desktop, some in the cloud, but they didn't really tell us how, when, where, all those things that people want to know, how much. So maybe they're going to start talking about that at Inspire also. I saw a few sessions on Nuance, the company they just bought in the healthcare space that does a lot of AI stuff. AI seems to be, unsurprisingly, a big theme. So yeah, if you're interested in just kind of knowing where Microsoft's going on a lot of different fronts across the company, I would say you should watch Inspire, which is coming up pretty soon.
All right. And then the code name pick of
Did I screw this up earlier by mistake?
Yeah, you did, but I have more to say about it. So
I didn't see it.
No, I know you did. I put this in late. So the code name is Monad. We were talking about Jeffrey Snover and PowerShell. Codename for PowerShell was Monad.
What does that
Jeffrey
mean?
Snover. Yeah. So Jeffrey Snover wrote this is a 16-page document. This is actually the version 2 of this document, which he calls the Monad Manifesto. This version 2 is from 2002. So he explains what monads are. I did not know. Monads are Leibniz's, I don't know who that is either, he's a philosopher, term for the fundamental unit of existence that aggregates into compounds to implement a purpose. See what we mean? This guy's a heady guy.
Oh my
He's not like some lightweight, right?
So I thought it was a character from Star Trek, no?
It is
a little
not.
deeper than that?
A little deeper. In this philosophy, everything is a composition of monads, right? If you're interested at all where PowerShell came from, this white paper is pretty interesting. He talks about the application model, the shell, management models, the scripting model. All you need to do to find it is just search for Monad Manifesto, and you'll find it. He joked on Twitter this week. He said, I've been at Microsoft for 22 years. 18 of them were good. The ones that weren't were when he got demoted for trying to push Monad and PowerShell. And he said he spent the rest of his time at Microsoft trying to climb the ladder again. I bet part of that's in jest, but I bet part of it is not. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah,
Now,
Monad Manifesto.
I've got some reading to do. Monad.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
All right. Well, say I want to sit down with a heady book on monads, but I need to just give my brain a break. What can I do, Mary Jo?
I have some thoughts to share. In fact, I have a beer that I think would be good for anyone who's celebrating the 4th of July weekend in the United States, which is this weekend. The beer is called Beer for Beaches. Not what you think, BEACHES, beer for drinking.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that.
Beer for drinking on the beach. Off Color Brewing in Chicago has a whole series of beers that they've created to try to take the pain and worry out of pairing your craft beer with different foods and different experiences. They have all kinds of crazy ones. Like they have beer for ball games. I think that was one of my picks last year. Beer for lightweights. Beer for fantasy that you drink when you're playing fantasy games. Beer for brunch. There's so many options. Beer for beaches, though, is fun because they did a riff on the Sex on the Beach cocktail in the beer form, right? So they took a farmhouse-style beer. They added cranberry juice, peach juice, lemon juice to it. And so what you get is something that looks like a light pinkish color. You get all the fruity flavors in there, and it's very light. They say it's best to be enjoyed on the beach with immature jokes because of sex on the beach. So yeah, perfect beer for the 4th of July, I would say. And all of those beers are pretty fun. I gave my neighbor downstairs who's really into baseball beer for baseball, and he thought it was great. So yeah. If you ever see those from Off Color, they're all worth a try.
All right. Beer for beaches. Beaches, folks. Beaches. Sandy.
It's Monday, right? 4th of July.
I believe it is.
It is.
Can't believe it's already here. I also can't believe the end of this episode of Windows Weekly is already here. Of course, this is... Oh, yes, exactly. This is the time where I tell you that if you want to be a part of the Discord, where we took a live question from the audience, or to be able to ask some questions and chat with Mary Jo and ask about Sriracha, all that kind of stuff, well, you can join the club at twit.tv/clubtwit for $7 a month. You too can be a part of the fun. That includes access to ad-free versions of all of our shows on the Twit network. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, that kind of magic, and access to, as I said, the Club Twit Discord server. That's a place where you can go and chat with your fellow Club Twit members, but also those of us here at Twit. This show records live every Wednesday around 11 a.m. Pacific, which you can watch live by going to twit.tv/live, or you can get the show on your own time by going to twit.tv/WW. There you'll find links to subscribe to both audio and video versions of the show. So you just find the little button that corresponds to the version you want, click to subscribe, and you are good to go. Mary Jo Foley of allaboutmicrosoft.com, thank you for your time this week.
Yeah, thank you, Micah. Always fun having you do the show with us.
Thank you. And Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com, coming to us from Lower Macungie Township. Is that it?
That's it.
Ah, yes. All right. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. And Leo Laporte will be back next week. Until then, you will have to wait for him. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at Space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of. and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out on your favorite podcatcher.